So, welcome to our second lesson for this course, How to Survive an Apocalypse Through Gardening. So, for our lesson 2, we have Waypot growing in water. So, that is a question that somehow uh, just evolved during the 90s because, as we all know, conventional gardening usually uses soil. And in our case, it was a recent discovery that you can also grow something in water. So before we start with our actual lesson, the technicalities of the things that we need to know about hydroponics, why hydroponics and such. Let me just first give you a background of my experience in hydroponics. So I've been dealing with hydroponics for the past years, and I've been writing about it. I've been looking at different articles, different journals that can support my knowledge on hydroponics. I've also experienced practicing it during my internship, and just in my home garden. I was also able to practice hydroponics. Back then, I was able to grow peppers, and I use those peppers in our home. So, where did I first hear about hydroponics? So, actually, hydroponics is one of our lessons back in undergraduate. During my first year in college, one of our lessons is hydroponics. Back then, we were tasked to observe hydroponically grown tomatoes. At the end of the experiment, we really saw tomatoes growing in the setups that we have. So that is the first time where I really got to experience and know more about the concept of hydroponics. So at first, my idea about hydroponics is, of course, revolutionary. This is something that is really not conventional. So I think that it is really an innovation for us, for our part as agriculturists, and even for people who are hobbyists. So I think that hydroponics play a really good role in order for us to secure our food. That is why in this course, we will be focusing more on the concept of hydroponics. And perhaps in the next months or next years, I will also be opening a course on other technologies that you can adapt in your home garden. Let us start with answering this question. What is hydroponics? So hydroponics is a cultivation method in which the plant roots are immersed in nutrient water. The nutrient water serves as the plant's primary source of nutrition for growth and development. So the nutrient solution or nutrient water, so take note of that. I will be using nutrient solution and nutrient water interchangeably across this course, is typically housed in a hydroponic reservoir. So when we say hydroponic reservoir, this could be a tank where your plants will grow. And the nutrient water can be delivered using a water pump in some systems. And in some systems, it does not need a water pump in order for the nutrients to be delivered to the roots. So water pump is not actually a requirement for hydroponics, but then you will know as we discuss on the next lesson the different types of hydroponics. It is also recommended to have an air pump for your hydroponic system in order to deliver oxygen to the roots or in order to have an oxygenated water. However, I have also a secret and I will also tell you about the hydroponic system that will not be needing an air pump. So you can also manipulate that and you can look at the different aspects of hydroponics and and you can also choose which hydroponic system is best for you. The approaches in hydroponics include deep water culture, nutrient film technique, ebb and flow, and wick systems. However, in this course, we will only be tackling some of this, not all of this, because I know that in an apocalypse, you will not have, the time to buy on Amazon or buy on your online shops. things for your hydroponic system, right? So, in this course, we will be dealing with the easiest and the low maintenance type of hydroponic system that you can absolutely grow or that you can absolutely adapt even using recycled materials. As we face the modern world, we are already aware that we also need to be sustainable. We also need to protect our environment. Thus, it will be helpful for us to recycle some materials from our home. So let us start with the space requirement. So actually, in hydroponics, it uses lesser space compared to conventional gardening. So if, for instance, if you will use a vertical nutrient film technique hydroponic system, you can grow 15 to 20 plants in a 1 by 2 meter space. Imagine that, 1 by 2 meter space, and you can already grow 15 to 20 plants. For instance, lettuce. So if you're going to use a deep water culture bucket system, which I will also be discussing in the next chapter, you'll need twice as much space. But if you will compare this to soil gardening, this amount of space is still less. So hydroponic height requirements are less stringent because they are typically smaller. So if you are also wondering about the height requirement of hydroponic systems, I think that it is not that complicated in terms of height because you can grow your hydroponic systems on a simple table. You can even put them in the floor. And if you will be using that hydroponic towers that we have, that is a more complicated system, and that will also be needing a lot of investment. Up next, let's have water consumption. So did you know that when you compare hydroponics from the term itself, hydroponics, so hydro, which means water. So it is very important for us to talk about the water consumption of hydroponics. So did you know that in hydroponics, when compared to traditional growing methods, like for example in the soil, hydroponic systems save up to 90% of the water. Why? You may be asking, why would they save more water? They are using water itself as the soil. It is because if you will compare this one with a conventional gardening, with soil gardening, in soil gardening, you will be watering your plants from now and then. So you will be watering perhaps 1 to 2 times a day. So you're consuming a lot of water. On contrary, in hydroponics, you are already growing in the water. So you do not need to, water it daily and such. That is why hydroponics is also considered as a low maintenance system. To support this, actually, there is a study by Calori in 2016 wherein he found out that hydroponically grown tomatoes require only 500 to 700 ml of water per plant per day. So imagine that it is lesser compared to, when you are using a sprinkler or a hose for soil gardening. This is lesser water compared to those. So next, let's talk about the site and location requirement. So hydroponic systems actually adhere to the principle of controlled environment agriculture. So if you are not familiar yet with controlled environment agriculture, this is a global movement which promotes uh the usage of technologies that can save spaces, that can save uh resources in a controlled environment. And hydroponics is one of those approaches under this movement. So as a result, they can be located in any climate, they can be located in any space that you have, given that you will be providing the necessary things or requirement and environment that is needed for an optimum growth. So in the next chapters of this course, we will be talking individually about the different requirements of hydroponic plants in terms of water, in terms of oxygen, light, nutrients, fertilizer, and how to even manage the pathogens, the pests and diseases that can even go into your hydroponic system. So it is very important in this one to control environmental conditions such as pH, temperature, root health, and nutrients. So now maybe you are wondering what are the plants that can grow in a hydroponic system. So actually there is a wide array of plants that can grow in hydroponic system. Back in my jobs, I am really amazed while I was researching, as what I've mentioned back then. In 4 companies, I was a content writer for gardening. And during those time, I am always tasked to conduct heavy research on hydroponics or in gardening concepts. And I'm really amazed that in hydroponics, there are a lot of things, there are a lot of plants that can grow in this system. Some of them are leafy vegetables, for example, lettuce, kale, bok choy. We also have fruiting vegetables, so you can have okra, if you're familiar with that, pepper, eggplant, tomato, and of course, herbs. I've tried growing herbs in hydroponics, and it is really quite more crunchy and juicy compared to those that are only grown in soil. So some of this are basil, thyme, and mint. So other plants that can also thrive in hydroponics include microgreen. So microgreens is actually another evolving type of commodity in our world. And I think India is actually one of the leading countries in the study of microgreens. Of course, we also have the Western countries. And actually, this is one of my topics in my undergraduate thesis. Yeah, so that is really interesting, and I think I will be able to, have or conduct create a chorus out of that as well. So you can also plant vining plants like cucumbers, even bulbs like onion and garlic, and even papaya. I tried planting papaya in hydroponics when I was in second year, and they actually grew. But the only issue is that you will only contain the papaya in the hydroponic setup for the first part of its life, and you can already transplant it. So I started my hydroponic papaya and then I transplanted it at the back of our house. And it is now really bearing a lot of fruits. And that is very, very interesting. To start from hydroponics and to replant it in soil on its later stages. So those are some of the plants that can grow in hydroponics. Now, let's move to the usage of growing medium. So if you're not familiar with the term growing medium, this is actually just like the soil. These are some materials that can help your plant's anchorage. So it will help your plant stand in the specific pot where it is in. So hydroponics necessitates the use of growing mediums that improve plant root anchorage. So coco coir, hydroponic clay balls, peat moss, rock wool are some examples of growing medium. If you're a starting grower, I am also recommending to use gravel. So I think rocks are really available all around us. So you can also use that if you're trying to save some money for your hydroponic system. So a hydroponic growing medium actually promotes plant anchorage and supports your plant growth. It can also provide additional nutrients, but this is not true in all of the cases of growing mediums. There are some growing mediums that can provide nutrients, and there are also some which cannot provide nutrients. In the next chapters, we will be dealing more with this. And of course, there are numerous of hydroponic growing mediums that are available online. There is also a list of growing mediums that I can give you when we go to that chapter about growing medium. Now let us talk about maintenance. So the interesting thing about hydroponics is that the simplest and least expensive system, which is the Kratky system, and this is the thing, or this is the system that I will be teaching you about in this whole course, that simple and at least expensive system can still be used to grow your own food. Imagine you will not be needing electricity, you only need a container, plant holder, and then the plant and some growing medium, and you are good to go. Yeah, so the Kratky hydroponic system allows gardeners to grow plants with just a bucket, some nutrient water, and a net cup. So with the proper growing conditions, this is a system that you can leave at home even if you're going on a 1 week vacation. So throughout this course, we will be looking through all the aspects regarding this one. Up next, let's have harvest. So if you want to garden in the comfort of your own home, hydroponics might be the way to go. So in the same amount of space, hydroponics can produce, a higher harvest quantity and even quality than traditional soil planting. So in harvesting hydroponic plants, it is just simply like harvesting your natural plants. The difference is you can grow more and you can also harvest more with hydroponic. Next, let's have some additionals. First, let's talk about the effect of power outages. So hydroponic methods such as the Kratky system can operate and grow plants without the use of electricity. The effects of power outages on hydroponic plants might be mitigated with simple measure. We can also talk about this as we go further. In the last chapter, I will be giving some golden hacks or golden tips and tricks that you can use in order for you to succeed in your hydroponic journey. And of course, let's talk about the cost. So for the cost, recycled materials can actually be used in hydroponics. I was also able to create my own hydroponic system in just, I think, uh $1 to $2 US dollars. And that is a really cheap cost for a system that can even provide you with food. And of course, you can use recycled materials like plastic bottles. I will also be teaching you something about that. However, if you want to invest more on a more complex hydroponic systems, you can always look at different hydroponic systems such as the nutrient film technique, the ebb and flow system, the weak systems, and vertical hydroponics, aeroponics, and you can purchase that if you want something for a long-term system. So now let's talk about the pros and cons of hydroponics. So for the pros, the materials can be recycled. That is a pro. It is also cheaper. So there are also fewer electrical components in contrast with planting systems. It also needs just a lesser space. It is easy to maintain. More plants can survive in this system in terms of plant compatibility. Hydroponics is actually the way to go. Power outages have a little impact on hydroponics. And of course, it is beginner friendly. So if you are enrolling here and you are a beginner in the field of hydroponics or even in the field of agriculture and gardening, so starting in hydroponics is actually a plus, is actually a good thing because you will be seeing results easily. You can even harvest in just 30 days or such. So, of course, in the cons, it is highly affected by environmental conditions. When I say environmental conditions, these are the water pH, the temperature. Thus, there is a need for us to really know where to locate our hydroponic systems and how to maintain them from time to time. So for the final takeaways, hydroponics is ideal for beginners in the field of gardening. So you can try looking at the different systems like deep water culture, nutrient film technique, ebb and flow, wicking systems, and of course the Kratky system, which I will be discussing more to you. So those are just some of the system designs that are available in the market. The majority of these designs require little maintenance and can be made from recycled material. So that's it for this lesson. I hope that you have learned something more in hydroponics in terms of its technicalities, that I've given you the overview of what hydroponics is. And yeah, see you in the next lesson.